हेलो हाय नमस्कार। आप सब कैसे हैं? होप ऑल आर फाइन। वेलकम टू सम ऑनलाइन क्लास। दिस इज डॉक्टर सुब्रत कुमार Mahanti. Today and in coming days we will discuss about lymphoid system. The lymphoid system is an organ system that is present in vertebrates. The system is a part of the immune system and is complementary to the circulatory system. The lymphoid system consists of a large network of lymphatic vessels, lymphoid tissues, lymphoid organs and lymph nodes. What is lymphoid organ? The organs of the lymphoid system are known as lymphoid organs. The lymphoid organs are of two different types. One is primary lymphoid organ and the other is secondary lymphoid organ. The primary lymphoid organ include bone marrow and thymus, whereas the secondary lymphoid organ include lymph nodes, spleen and diffuse lymphoid tissue like bulk in the lungs and malt in the digestive tract. Bulk means bronchial associated lymphoid tissue which is present in the lungs, and malt means mucosa associated lymphoid tissue that is present in the digestive tract. Both the primary lymphoid organs and secondary lymphoid organs are connected to each other and to infected tissue by two different circulatory systems. These two circulatory systems are blood and lymphatics. Then we shall discuss about primary lymphoid organs. So primary lymphoid organs include bone marrow and thymus. At primary lymphoid organs, immune cells develop. The immune cells develop at the primary lymphoid organ. These organs regulate the development of immune cells from immature precursors. Most immune cells mature in the bone marrow and then they travel to the peripheral organ via blood. B lymphocytes as well as monocytes, erythrocytes, granulocytes remain in bone marrow as they mature, whereas T lymphocytes migrate to thymus before maturation. Next is secondary lymphoid organs. The secondary lymphoid organs filter the extracellular fluid for antigens and microorganisms. At these sites, lymphocytes are activated by antigens and subsequently develop into effector cells. And the secondary lymphoid organs are distributed throughout the body. We are discussing about the lymphoid system and the lymphoid organs. The organs of the lymphoid system are known as lymphoid organs. There are two types of lymphoid organs. One is primary lymphoid organ and other is secondary lymphoid organs. The primary lymphoid organs include bone marrow and thymus, whereas the secondary lymphoid organ include spleen, lymph nodes and diffuse lymphoid tissue like bronchial associated lymphoid tissue in the lungs and mucosa associated lymphoid tissue present in the digestive tract. So first of all, primary lymphoid organs. So at primary lymphoid organs, immune cells develop from immature precursor, whereas at the secondary lymphoid organ, the immune response is initiated. So let us discuss about bone marrow. So what is bone marrow? Bone marrow is a spongy tissue that is present within the central cavities of long and flat bones. In adult human, bone marrow is located in vertebra, ribs, sternum and bones of the pelvis. The bone marrow, it is the major hematopoietic organ. What is hematopoietic organ? Now the organ which participate in hematopoiesis is known as hematopoietic organ. Hematopoiesis is the process by which hematopoietic stem cell is differentiated into various types of blood cells. And the bone marrow consists of hematopoietic tissue islands and adipose cells interspersed within a meshwork of trabecular bones. Then, structure of bone marrow. The composition of bone marrow is dynamic. It means the composition of bone marrow changes. And the components of bone marrow, one is hematopoietic components, second is stroma, third is marrow adipose tissue. So first is hematopoietic components. Bone marrow is a primary lymphoid organ and responsible for production of erythrocytes, granulocytes, monocytes, lymphocytes and thrombocytes. Thrombocytes are also known as platelets. The main functional components of bone marrow is hematopoietic stem cells. The hematopoietic stem cells are multipotent stem cells that are self-renewing, and these hematopoietic stem cells can become a common lymphoid progenitor or a common erythroid myeloid progenitor. The common lymphoid progenitor can give rise to B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes and natural killer cells, whereas the common erythroid myeloid progenitor gives rise to all red blood cells that belong to erythroid lineage, and the erythroid myeloid progenitor can also give rise to granulocytes, monocytes and macrophages that belong to myeloid lineage. So the bone marrow is a primary lymphoid organ that is responsible for formation of various blood cells like red blood cells, granulocyte, monocyte, macrophages and different type of lymphocytes. Next, most immune cells mature in the bone marrow, then migrate to the peripheral organ via blood. So blood play an important role in the transport of immune cells from bone marrow to the peripheral organ. All lymphocytes originate in the bone marrow. Beta lymphocytes, erythrocytes, granulocytes and megakaryocytes, they remain in bone marrow as they mature. It means B lymphocytes, erythrocytes, granulocytes and megakaryocytes, they undergo maturation in the bone marrow, whereas T lymphocytes migrate to thymus before maturation. It means the lymphocytes undergo maturation in the thymus. Next is mast cells and macrophages, they undergo further maturation outside the bone marrow. The second component of bone marrow is stroma. What is stroma? The stroma include all tissues that is not directly involved in hematopoiesis. The stroma consists of different types of cells like osteoblast, osteoclast, fibroblast, adipocytes, chondrocytes and endothelial cells. What is osteoblast? Osteoblast is a specialized cells that synthesize bone. Osteoclast is also a specialized cells that absorb and remove bone. Fibroblast is responsible for formation of collagen. Adipocytes are the fat cells. Chondrocytes is responsible for the formation of cartilage, and endothelial cells, they line the anterior of the surface of the blood vessels. Third component is marrow adipose tissue. Marrow adipose tissue is a unique fat depot in the bone marrow, and this adipose tissue exhibits close relationship with hematopoiesis and bone homeostasis. The bone marrow contains two types of stem cell. One is hematopoietic stem cell, other is mesenchymal stem cell. Mesenchymal stem cells are also multipotent stem cells that give rise to various types of cells like osteoblast, osteoclast, fibroblast, adipocytes and chondrocytes and endothelial cell. Hello friends, this is about the structure and function of bone marrow, which is types of bone marrow. There are two types of bone marrow. One is red bone marrow and the other is yellow bone marrow. Let us know the difference between them. First is red bone marrow. Red bone marrow contains hematopoietic stem cells that can differentiate into various types of blood cells. Whereas the yellow bone marrow, it mainly acts as a store of fat. Under particular condition, the yellow bone marrow play a very important role. For example, during fever or when there is severe blood loss, the yellow bone marrow may revert to red bone marrow. The bone marrow remains red until the age of 7 years because the need for new blood formation is high. As the body ages, the red bone marrow is replaced with yellow bone marrow. This is about the structure and function of bone marrow. Thank you friends. Hope all of you will share, subscribe and like my video. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.